Discovering all-gen underrated series has been one of my favorite passions as an anime and manga fan. I found the best of the most interesting titles that, despite being great and has everything done right, they often never get the spotlight that I personally believe they do. The best examples include a good classic such as Gash Bell, Shaman King, the amazing and also quite hilarious Beelzebub, one that I'm currently reading like Air Gear, which is by the way really good, and not to mention Toriko. There's also even some of my absolute favorite underrated titles such as I Shield 21 and Katekyo Hitman Reborn. I want to talk about this series now because I've mentioned it a couple times and it is only a matter of time before I make a video on it. Because my first Katekyo Hitman Reborn video did surprisingly well, I took it upon myself to, why not make a sequel? And this time, talk about another underrated series and give it all the love that it deserves, potentially doing more types of these videos in the near future, giving all other fellow underrated series a chance for a spotlight. Originally, I didn't know what series to go for at first. I wanted to find a classic series that, even though it is underrated, there are still dedicated fans to this day still having their passions for said series and inspiring newer people to check it out. After a while, I knew what could be that title, and I believe I've sort of mentioned it more than once on my channel. And there's already another series like that, and it's another classic manga that I really love. It's called D.Gray-Man. So hopefully this will be a treat for all-time D.Gray-Man fans since it's been a while since this series has been discussed, even in the year of 2023. And so, let's get to it. So, D.Gray-Man. Never heard of it? Well, you've heard of it now. But if you're one of the few who have heard of it and is a part of the D.Gray-Man fandom, then you very likely watched these types of videos relating to the series that basically sums up on what makes D.Gray-Man great. So there might not be much to talk about since it's already done to death in a way, so this probably isn't an original idea. But look, that's not something I'm concerned about for when I make this video. I'm making this video because I genuinely love the series, just as much as it is close and dear and near to my heart. One other piece of media that I generally and openly consume as well, and I am one of the few who believes that people need to experience it. It legitimately has everything done right, from its decent cast of characters to which I'd argue to be the highest, strongest points of the series. The interesting world building, the phenomenal story that can get you at the edge of your seat whenever you set focus to the series and understand why is a specific element that comes into play within the plot is significant. D.Gray-Man also introduces a dark, menacing atmosphere that would sure give you Halloween vibes, and it can be a nerving experience, but also adventurous. Every chapter feels so intriguing, it makes you want to know what could possibly happen in the next one, making you also question the intentions of the characters involved and what they could go through within the story. I also noticed that even though the series is quite long, its use of classic shonen tropes are very minimal, and on the occasion when it does use them, the other elements of the series keeps the formula fresh. I might even go as far as to consider it a masterpiece. Not in a sense that it's completely perfect, like the writing is so good you absolutely cannot critique it. The series still obviously has certain flaws, and anyone has their own personal critiques of it and could point it out if necessary, and it's totally understandable and we can all respect that. But I mean in a sense that combined with its smaller insights, the design, the high points like the characters, and every other good element that it provides, even though you look past its nitpicks and accept the series for what it is because you enjoy it, that to me is what makes something a masterpiece. Personally, like most things, even I do have my personal nitpicks of the series. But to call it a masterpiece, I wouldn't hesitate. No, not at all. However, even if you, the viewer, don't consider it a masterpiece like I do, regardless of whether you're a fan or not, that's totally acceptable. And that to me is the beauty of having an opinion. Everyone has a voice of something at the end of the day. The only opinion that should matter is yours. My wish and intention here is for people to understand how I feel about the series and possibly give it another shot. Nobody's rushing you to get to the interesting parts. You can take your time just like how the story does. Okay everyone, let's proceed with the premise and the main plot of D.Gray-Man. The premise does sound very basic at best. A young orphan teenage boy named Alan Walker joins an organization filled with professional exorcists that fights off demons that are wandering around throughout the world he lives in. does sound very typical and generic, but once you start reading the manga and experience what the story has to offer, it truly does its best to fill you in the mystery of what's going on and to keep you interested. You have to see the story in the same way as Alan's perspective. The basic plot is that it is set in the 19th century. An exorcist organization that Alan joins are known as the Black Order. They use an ancient substance called the Innocence, a mysterious material and the main power source weapon that the exorcists use to fight off these demons, which are known as Akuma. Of course, if you're familiar with the Japanese folklore, then you already know this sounds pretty familiar. Alan Walker is devoted to bringing the salvation to the Akumas and to his eventual fated showdown against not only the creator of the Akumas, but the entity who's responsible for his tragic past, the 1,000-year-old phantom known as Millennium Earl, who was one of the most terrifying antagonists within Shonen Jump, more so than the other mainstream anime villains in my opinion. Millennium Earl has a lore that is just as unsettling as his appearance, with his large, almost cartoonish rounded figure that is easily towering over everyone in the series. His casual, evil-looking goblin-like face, with long, pointed ears, and his large, rectangular-shaped mouth that appears to be stuck in a perpetual, intimidating grin. This pretty much gives him an overall demonic and otherworldly appearance. Now, to be fair, most of the other Akuma that you would encounter within the series are just as terrifying looking. The Akuma and D.Gray-Man are a very interesting villainous faction. They are literally the embodiment and physical manifestation of a deceased loved one. Several Akumas are born and created after a living human made contact with Millennium Earl, in which various of the dead were soon trapped within the dark matter skeleton and were forced to obey the Earl's will, causing them to kill the one who called them back from the departed and put on their corpse, using their appearances to move around among the humans in disguise in order to exist. Because they are reanimate corpses, which are also secretly artificial creatures, they could easily blend in with the masses, potentially causing the average person to be deceived by the Akuma. These are the weapons of the Millennium Earl, whose intent of the world's sheer destruction is absolute. Alan Walker has been cursed with an anti-Akuma weapon as his left arm and an eye that sees the former soul of the Akuma since his youth. Alan is very eager, has a strong sense of desire to take down Millennium Earl and bring forth salvation to his army of Akumas, as this does reflect on his mysterious tragic past, living his life as an orphan, to which I'll get into details later, without spoiling too much of course. Probably one of the happiest moments to ever happen to Alan was when he was first welcomed by the members of the Order, because he truly never had anyone to call a family, except for this one person to which he fondly remembers, Mana Walker. If you're planning on reading the manga afterwards, do keep all this in mind because, like I've said, there will be more interesting twists that will actually change the big parts of the story that you wouldn't see coming, and I absolutely do not intend to spoil the entire story. I'm only giving small important points in hopes of keeping you interested and giving you hints that something in the story will actually happen. It may take a while to get there, but the manga chapter progress is slow due to being in quarterly release as of this recording, so you'll see how this all goes. Don't worry, I'll get to the characters just in a second. I'll get to more on Alan and the other characters that the series focuses on. The world building in the series is also very phenomenal in my opinion. It really shows its dark nature that Hoshino Katsura was trying to create. Even if you compare the anime and the manga's world, the unsettling environment just never changes. Most shonen series don't really have that strong horror and gothic elements like this one, besides, let's say maybe Soul Eater. But even then, this does give D.Gray-Man an identity of its own, which works well in my book. And combine all that with Hoshino's art style, setting, and characters, it complements it very well if I say so myself. Of course, there are a couple of funny and humorous scenes just to ease the attention to have comedy relief moments, so the characters aren't always on a mission and being at their lowest all the time, as they have a blast and being able to unwind in mundane moments. The story isn't just about who's bad and who's good, as in black and white. It's more about how everyone have both sides to them and each fight for what they think is right, a deep representation of a human condition. It is how we have to live with ourselves and how every choice we make, regardless of it being right or wrong, we have to move forward. And yes, this does also affect our fellow exorcists that we know and love today. The story must be seen through Alan's perspective that represents what the title is named after, Grey. It grows into a story that has incredible emotions towards others, dealing with bonds between characters. It truly does have an intense build-up and so many interesting plot twists you wouldn't think would happen. You want to know what these twists are? Well, read the story to find out. That's right, I'm not spoiling anything. The main objective of this video is to inspire viewers and potential newcomers to check out the series without me having to unnecessarily spoil everything. It's that interesting and the experience is truly worth it. Hopefully I did a great job on explaining everything and making you guys interested in the story. Fans can tell that Hoshino really added a lot of layers in the story that you have to see and read for yourself, and truly experience on what's going on and understand why a concept is significant. Though if you feel a slight disinterest or maybe you feel like something is missing, then rest assured because you are now in one of the best sections of the series. Let's see. Oh, how about this one? I think a lot of fans would agree. The characters and cast of D.Gray-Man is arguably one of the highest points of the series. That's not to say that everything else is devoid of that. Granted, many of the aspects that the series has to offer has all the high points too, to which I'll get into later. But it seems that when it comes to the characters, it is the most exciting part for fans. If I were to list every single character in D.Gray-Man that appeared, I'd be here all day, like come on, seriously. Aside from Millennium Earl, to which I have already talked about, there's the Noah family, supporting side characters, flashback characters, the generals of the Black Order, Miranda Lotto. Again, I'd be here all day. And I think Katsuro Hoshino did an amazing job with her storytelling and character development to the point where you feel attached to every single one of her character, and who knows, you might find a personal favorite like how I have. To keep this video as consistent as possible, I want to only focus on the main group's characters that are mostly centered upon, half of the time, to which you might have to pay attention to. Now, let's start with the non-protagonists first before we reach Alan Walker. Arguably one of the most popular fan favorite characters in the series, Lavi Bookman, or Lavi for short. Lavi is very beloved in the fandom to this day, and to be honest, there's a perfectly good reason for that. He has a personality that I really like. He's kind of like the smooth talker of the group. He seems quite simple to understand and is generally one of the characters I tend to vibe with most in the series. He's carefree and really cool. I also love his ability and his amazing anti-Akuma weapon. One of the most interesting things about D.Gray-Man is that everyone seemingly starts out as a stereotype, but then evolves into much deeper characters over time, and Lavi is no different. Everyone has a purpose, everyone has stakes, which I think is really unique for a manga like this and makes everything intriguing. It makes you want to know more about him, especially when you know his position as a bookman apprentice. He was forced to have a conviction to not have personal attachment to his comrade, since he's only an observer who belongs to an organization whose main goal was to record and maintaining the true hidden history of the world, which are anonymous to humans. Once you know enough about him, you will see that he does go through crazy amounts of character development in the series. The trajectory of Lavi's character is an impressive one, as he goes from being a stereotypical cool guy to be considered a bystander, unable to make connections to his friends and family, to finding opportunities in the worst of circumstances, having a resolve to protect the people he cares about, even going as far as to actively going against his role as a bookman to do so. To keep you from spoiling any further, I will say that Lavi is insanely a great character, and it's kind of no wonder he sat well with the fans till this day. Hoshino definitely proved her amazing writing when giving Lavi depth. Next up is Kanda Yu. Kanda is one of the main exorcists alongside Alan, Lavi, and Linili, although he is a lot different from the main cast. Whereas the other main cast are much friendlier and outgoing at times, Kanda is introduced as cold, stoic, arrogant, basically an egotistic hard-ass, even to his fellow exorcist. In battle, he will do anything to win, sometimes at the risk of his teammates. It is his opinion that exorcists are not saviors. But don't let it fool you though. He may seem that way all the time, like the way he makes fun of Alan, being irritated by Lavi, and sometimes everybody else around him, but that's because he actually has a story, which will be revealed if you pay attention to him. His swordsmanship is also really interesting, which leads to an amazing battle fight scenes. I would love to give out the details about his tragic past, but it does lead to huge spoilers, especially since I think it is revealed in the later parts of the story rather than in the earliest parts, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, it does give him a lot of depth and leads to an interesting character development. I will briefly explain his character evolution throughout the series. Like Lavi, Kanda also evolved from a deep, meaningful character and has changed from a one-dimensional stereotypical hothead to becoming someone who's willing to repay a depth towards someone as a form of redemption, and he eventually learns how to listen and make an attempt to open to others. It is interesting how Hoshino wrote him. Who knows, he might even be your favorite. Next up is Linili, one of my most personal favorite characters in the group. if we're not going to count the protagonist, obviously. Lena Lee is one of the main focused exorcists. She's also very kind, caring, and generally a friendly woman who does her best to treasure her friends, and though she comes to think of all of them as a family, more than anything else in the world. She's also very selfless, that to the point her view of the world represents that of completely of those around her, not just in the Black Order, even to the civilians that they were trying to save from the Akuma. So much so that when someone dies or gets injured, her perspective sees that a piece of her world is either getting broken or destroyed, thus causing her to be quick-tempered. According to General Cross, Lena Lee used to bottle up all her emotions inside, possibly when she was much younger, but later on has improved at letting them out over time. It is still advisable not to upset Lena Lee, as she can change from someone pure to someone legitimately angry. Lena Lee might sound like a typical nice girl stereotype at first, but like with the other characters that I covered, she arguably has depth too. Besides being very skilled with her innocence, really cute, and oftentimes very funny, she's also very realistic and very relatable, and there is more to what meets the eye in her character, especially when you get to the part of her tragic backstory, which I would love to go in details again, but that would lead to potential spoilers, but because it is essential to what strengthens her character, and thankfully it is explained in the early parts of the story, so you don't have to worry about it too much, so I'll only go for the shorter version and save the important parts to be discovered. Basically, her parents were killed by an Akuma. The Black Order then discovered she was compatible with the Dark Boot's innocence, resulting in her being taken away by her brother and was brutally tortured and experimented on as a child at the age of 8. She was stuck for a long time until her brother was promoted enough to end her suffering. This past of her impacted her so badly that whenever she gets reminded of it, she becomes numbed and shivers. Lena Lee does have flaws in her character that are over time overlooked, such as her quick temper as mentioned, and the fact that she's not always a happy-go-lucky sweetheart, which is further evident to that one conversation she had with Kanda in which she had enough courage to call him out, even sometimes wronging Lavi and even Alan. She goes through so many traumatic experiences from time to time throughout the story so far, and even breaks down most of the time, portraying a very realistic character. Now, yes, just because a character is realistic doesn't automatically make that character good, but it doesn't make them bad either. It mostly depends on how well you pay attention to that specific character. In my opinion, there's no right or wrong way to write a realistic character, so long as you either give that character depth or make them feel like what a normal person would react to in any type of situations you would put them in, rather than making them flat. And Hoshino does that pretty well with Lena Lee in my opinion, even though she isn't the main protagonist, though I do personally consider her as the secondary protagonist. If my take on Lena Lee sounds biased, it is. I mean, out of all the four main groups, Lena Lee is sort of not appreciated well enough, which is a huge shame because I do feel like she needs more of that respect as a female shonen lead. She literally went from a girl whose entire life was filled with self-loathing following her parents' death to finding resolve to be there for her family, willing to do anything to protect them. Even when she almost loses her innocence and consciousness, she still fights. Anyway, I do love Lena Lee. That's a big part of what I love about the series as a whole. Everyone is able to relate to, love, and even appreciate at least one of, if not all the characters, because they're all quite likable in different ways. Even despite me loving Lena Lee more, I can still confirm to you there is a lot to love about the rest of the cast. So, expect to find the favorites. Which then brings me to the main protagonist. Alan Walker much definitely deserved his own chapter in this video because there was a lot of talk about him. Obviously, I will not be spoiling the entire thing as I much prefer for newer viewers to seek out the series for themselves. But of course, it is only natural we get to have some bit of info on what makes the main character of D.Gray-Man personally the best of the best. Now, I'm not gonna act like Alan Walker is the most well-written protagonist ever thought out and shove my opinion down people's throats. In fact, you have to look at the story in the same way how he does in his perspective, and you also have to pay attention to how he impacts the story, making hard life decisions as a teenager. To me, he gets the job done. Sure, the manga is yet to finish and we don't really know much about Alan's full potential, but so far from how Hoshino wrote him, I'd consider him that he's done more than enough to go down in history to be a great shonen protagonist. And I think a lot of fans can agree with that. I might even say he's one of my absolute favorites alongside Yusuke Urameshi, Ichigo Kurosaki, and Tsuneyoshi Sawada. Oh, and Guts too. Alan can be described as a formal, generous, and a very polite young man, also making him the opposite to Kanda. Alan discovering and learning about the world around him, along with the Black Order, learning about himself and his past, really makes his journey that much meaningful. There's a bit of humor, fun, interesting, and even mostly emotional traits about Alan as a character. One of my favorite traits from him is how he's a big eater in the group, finding interest in any types of food, how he reacts to being teased, and also with the fact that people treasuring his kindness and his humanity more than his innocence. His connection and bonds with the Black Order is very fun and to watch and read, as he grows not just as a powerful exorcist, but also growing as a person too, which really creates this nice feeling about our beloved protagonist. Alan is very honorable and prideful, refusing to run away from Noah, even though Komui, Linili's older brother, warned him, even going as far as nearly risking his life for the sake of a family he knew little to nothing about. And due to his cursed eye, it has the ability to see the human souls bound, stuck inside the Akuma. Alan has a philosophy that considers Akuma to be just as important to him as humans, because as I've mentioned, Akuma are born and created when an unaware human makes a deal with Millennium Earl, calling out the beloved dead souls to take on the form of an Akuma. Once they are exorcised, they are sent back to the dearly departed. This idol philosophy conflicts that of Kanda, which creates this interesting tension rivalry between Alan and Kanda, which to me is a very effective dynamic. As I've said earlier, Kanda believes that exorcists are not saviors and are simply destroyers, but Alan counters with the fact that if I can't be a savior, then I want to be a destroyer that saves lives. But of course, there is a hint of sadness within Alan as well. He, after all, watched the person who came to care about him, Mana Walker, turning into an Akuma, and he was at a very young age to witness something terrible. During his childhood, Alan was abandoned by his original family due to his abnormal left arm, and they sold him to a circus. He was then taken along with a man named Mana Walker and began traveling with him. Once Mana has died, it is then revealed that Alan was a victim that was fooled by the Millennium Earl and unavoidably turned Mana into an Akuma, and in response was very furious. Alan had to watch the person he considered a father dying the second time, as his abnormal left arm is revealed to be a piece of innocence, in which it activated without his intention and as a result exorcised Mana's Akuma. At Mana's dying breath, he told Alan that he loved him. Following his death, Alan coped with his loss by gaining some of Mana Walker's polite personality in order to keep his spirit alive, to which was a lot different to how he originally was as a child. And it is difficult not to feel empathy for Alan as he continues to venture and walking through a world that is infinitely more complicated and cruel than he is. Alan became an exorcist not out of guilt, but to gain himself a purpose in life, and in doing so, he still resolves to exorcise the Akumas, carrying with him the immense burden that he never wants to see the suffering of humans and Akumas occur again. His anti-Akuma weapon is more of a curse than it is a blessing, a curse to which he describes his guiding lights. I've tweeted a questionnaire post for the D.Gray-Man fandom, and I've asked this question: what is their favorite aspect of the series? And the most answer I got, besides nostalgia, art style, and etc., is actually mostly with Alan Walker and his journey. To them, Alan is a relatable character and can be described as someone they see in themselves, which makes him a unique character overall, and I can definitely see why. He isn't some kind of comic book hero we'd all expect that we want to be like. He's someone who is shown to represent a realistic personality type, especially through the journey he goes through. To me though, he's a character I want to encourage, root for, and most importantly, Alan deserves to be happy. I really want to see Alan being happy again. Of course, he may start off as a typical nice guy at first, but when you reach the current chapters and when you continue on reading, you will see the kinds of things he goes through. While D.Gray-Man at its core is a Shonen Jump title, it definitely has a lot of seinen themes, which is evident from all the suffering he and the others have been through in the later chapters. Alan definitely has a great character development evolution as well. I won't give you the details for the sake of the newer viewers, but I will say, he is one of a kind shonen protagonist. Okay, so this section isn't technically necessary, but there's a good reason why I'm putting this here. When it comes to manga art styles, you can match Hoshino Katsura, She easily has one of the best art styles I've seen within manga, in Shonen Jump or otherwise. In my opinion, manga art style is very important. It has to convey the story not only with words, but with art. This allows readers not to only read what is happening, but also to visually see how different the panels work together to push the story forward. And I would say Hoshino absolutely has done a great job in providing that. Hoshino is highly praised for her art, not just by fans but even by critics alike. Her most effective visually striking element isn't even from her character design. Heck, even the background and setting designs are just very beautiful, and for a story like D.Gray-Man, it gives it an arcane and ominous vibe that makes it much interesting. Want to talk about character designs? I think her art style speaks for itself. The proportion of each character is correct, the eye size is very fantastic, the sketching and coloring is, as you can see, is also very impressive. The uniforms of the characters are also nice to look at, and pretty much everything about her art style is a genuine masterpiece. Most people from the D.Gray-Man fandom that I've spoken with or answered to my tweet that I've read also mentioned how her art style inspired them to be an artist themselves and start drawing characters or even making their own comic story, and that is very amazing to hear. A manga artist that motivates others to draw? To me, that's exactly what any artist, mangaka or not, should bring: inspiration. It truly showed how her art style definitely made a huge, great impact. To say she has a perfected illustration would be an understatement. When looking at the character evolution in the manga, you can see how it drastically changes over time throughout the years. What doesn't change though is the fact that it's still good. Great even. It can divide people's preference on which one do they personally prefer, but it doesn't change that they're all amazing at the end of the day. It is a common thing for most mangaka to evolve their art style the more their manga is still running. Best examples are like One Piece, Black Clover, Jujutsu Kaisen. Besides Taito Kubo and Akira Amano, I will say Katsuro Hoshino is no stranger to that, and her art style manga definitely pays off. The anime art style, while not as impressive as the manga, I will say it is still appealing. The subject is rather divisive amongst fans between the original 2006 anime and the D.Gray-Man Hollow 2016. The 2006 art style has a darker color palette, which fits the gothic-like style with the character designs almost looking like generic shonen. 2016 art style has a unique style to it and visually interesting bright colors, and the character designs are somewhat close and comparable to the manga art style. Not sure by a large margin or not, but make that if you will. Again, it is divisive, but naturally I do like both. The 2006 has a personal nostalgia for me, while the 2016 one has a decent touch to it. Which then segues into... I'm just gonna make this one short. There's actually a perfectly reasonable answer to this question. Now you might be thinking, well gee, that sounds good and all, Red, but which one should I go for? Should I go for the anime or the manga? To answer this question, well, ultimately the decision is yours. The anime and manga both have their high points, like I've explained earlier, and you're not exactly missing out if you watch the original anime, as the quote-unquote fillers are actually based on the light novels of the series. You're basically giving yourself more advantage on your exploration if you were to start your journey on D.Gray-Man. That is, if you plan to watch the anime. That being said, if I were to give you a personal recommendation on which would you most likely go for if you want to start your fresh journey to the series in case you're still conflicted, I can safely say the manga is arguably a much more better way to get into the series. Since the manga is still ongoing, it does release its chapters quarterly. Both animes didn't adapt the full complete story, which is really unfortunate. You have to keep in mind that D.Gray-Man Hollow is actually a sequel to the original 2006 anime, since the original caught up with the manga and Hollow wasn't even finished either. So it is much easier to just read the manga from scratch and then continue along with the fans to be patient and wait for the new chapters. But if you consider going for the anime instead, there's no shame in going for it either. The 2006 anime adaptation is very nostalgic to me to this day, and I find myself rewatching it on multiple times on several occasions. Despite it aging a lot as years go on, I can say there is no shame in watching it, and D.Gray-Man Hollow has an amazing step-up visuals to look at. But it is still advisable to read the manga in order to fully experience the series. I'd argue that because of the beautiful manga art style and a much detailed story, it's better not to miss out on them. Despite D.Gray-Man being plagued with hiatuses time and time again, and especially being overshadowed by plenty of shonen titles, I gotta say, it's actually very impressive that till this day, there is still quite the devoted fanbase. This has nothing to do with the fanbase generally being bad or good. I'm talking about the sheer dedication alone. Lingering very close to the series for almost more than a decade is a very admirable trait. Now, for a series that is widely popular, like let's say Dragon Ball, My Hero Academia, and Black Clover, it's not exactly something special to have a dedicated fanbase given how massively popular these titles are. Even series like Hunter x Hunter that's also plagued with hiatuses like D.Gray-Man. It's still not that surprising of how popular Hunter x Hunter is, since despite Togashi taking a huge break, it is still one of the most popular titles in shonen out there, and has a huge fanbase even till now. But D.Gray-Man is different. It's in no way even remotely close to any of these series based on popularity. This is a Shonen Jump title that was released literally serialized back in 2004, at the time when the big three, One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto, were hitting the scene. D.Gray-Man was quite popular back in those times, regularly making in the popular Shonen Jump title magazine's rankings, even though its hiatus were only somewhat little by little. But when the hiatus went from little to common to then being galore, its popularity drifted in a way. Of course, this changed when the anime eventually got a sequel in 2016 with D.Gray-Man Hollow, but even then, it's still somewhat quiet. And the fact that it didn't stop the fanbase from letting go of the series is very impressive, and I only know their existence around 2019. And I got into the series around 2012 by watching the original 2006 anime. The proof of this is not just from the analysis videos that I've watched before making this, even from my questionnaire that I posted online like Twitter, Instagram, and the D.Gray-Man Reddits. And all I did was ask a simple question that relates to the series, like what is your favorite aspect of the series, is it the characters, story, and what exactly made them close to it. And safe to say, I got a lot of genuine good answers, and even a long essay of a fan's experience. Reading all of them was a lot of fun, and I got emotional just from reading them. And in a way, it made me very dedicated to make this video, pushing myself to get the word out there just to say, hey, D.Gray-Man is special. Sure, it may not be largely popular as much, but it didn't need that to be good. Just by reading the series or watching the anime, you'll get whatever impression that came into your head, and if you find yourself liking it, then feel free to keep going. But if it didn't appeal to you, then hey, all the power to you. Even if it doesn't appeal to your liking, for example, you cannot deny the loyalty that the fanbase have with this old generation series. It may be small, but their love for it is beyond infinite, doing their best to keep the series up for years, fighting their way through days just to wait for a new chapter every around 3 to 4 months, wishing the author well and occasionally recommending it to others. And believe me, as a Hitman Reborn fan for more than 10 years, doing the exact same thing, I have nothing but admirable mutual respect for them. Not just with D.Gray-Man, even other fellow underrated titles that I've seen people openly discuss, showing their passion and recommending it to others. Titles like Air Gear, Beelzebub, Icel 21, Zatzbel or Gashbel, whatever you want to call it, and so on and so forth. Doing their best to keep lesser known classic series alive, and I genuinely approve seeing people do that, and I do encourage others to do the same. I feel like this is very important for me to address whenever I make a discussion video about a certain series. Since we all know the only opinion that matters is yours, I'm merely giving a recap with my thoughts, and I highly encourage viewers to discuss about what they think on the said series. Although saying I'm wrong just because I have a different opinion than you isn't the way to do it, but I digress. If you're also a D.Gray-Man fan watching this and you didn't get to answer the questions I've posted online, no need to fear, as that's exactly what the comment section is made for. Now, I ask you, what is your favorite aspect of D.Gray-Man, and why is it a series that got you very close to it? The answer can be as long as you want, and I will do my best to read them, I promise. Now as for me, we finally reached the end, wrapping up to my final thoughts. Just like how Bleach got me into Hitman Reborn, Hitman Reborn was the one that got me into D.Gray-Man. May sound weird, but that's 2012 for you. I've watched the original D.Gray-Man anime back in 2012 and thought it was a good show. I didn't think of it as mind-blowing that it changed my life or anything like that, but it was still worth watching regardless. Revisiting it, however, experiencing the full story, not just with the anime, but also within the manga at its fullest form, makes me appreciate it even more than I have ever done before. Ever since I finished reading certain chapters and finished watching the anime, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I thought about it, the more I loved it even more. Yeah, there are still flaws present in the story, but it is one of the series that grows on you really quickly, especially when times go by. My favorite aspect of D.Gray-Man for me is a mixture of everything else. The interesting world building, the characters, the art style, the fantastic story, and the journey of Alan Walker. It's almost like whatever is around D.Gray-Man touches turns to gold, and we'd have none of that if it wasn't for Hoshino-sensei. Even with her health being fickle at times, she still does her best to release chapters quarterly, and we need to have a moment to appreciate her hard work for that. I do seriously hope she's doing well and wish her the best and keep her at my prayers. As for the devoted fans out there, please, don't let the series down. Keep that passion and that supportive dedication that you always have with the series. Be proud of it, because not exactly everyone around the world is like you, and who knows, other people might learn that amazing trait from you. If Alan Walker can keep going in his journey, then we, the fans, can also keep walking too. Take care, have a great day, and see you soon.